Hello.
Looks like we're already recording, so I'll refrain from making the kinds of comments that I might otherwise make.
Yikes. One of those days.
You look well today, sir, and very distinguished.
I'm rested.
Me too.
I just had, I helped one of the guys in our small group, I helped him hang a TV yesterday at his house.
Nice.
And then I just heard him knock on, or I heard a knock on the door. I'm like, oh, I've got a class I've got to go do. I'm like, I can't get sucked into something. And he dropped off a gift card for the coffee shop.
Aw, that's so nice.
It was really nice.
You know what I did yesterday?
Finish that pie.
I finished my
Oh my
birds.
gosh.
This is Joe and Kamala.
Dang. That looks great.
I'm showing the entirety of KWIR in video form. Still coming up with a title for this one. It needs something fancy, I think. I have somebody offering to pay me money to make her a custom pattern and make something.
Whoa, ballin'.
Pretty excited. So that's going to be the weekend project, is to work on that. She wants a lot of text. I hate doing text, but I like getting paid.
Getting paid
So,
is usually okay.
so I feel like that's a good break even.
So, Lisa, do you know, can I post documents in here? I think I can, right? If I go into the chat.
You
Looks
can,
like,
yes. You should be able to anyway. If you hit file.
yeah.
Oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can drag and drop. I'm just going to try that with a random photo. No, that one doesn't work. Oh. Maybe you can only share from one of those sharing sites. That's weird.
Yeah, I know Heather's been kind of collecting stuff after, so
Oh,
I'll
sure.
send it to her after so she can at least use it.
Jordan, how are
Hey, what's up,
you?
Jordan?
Hey guys.
What have you been up to apart from like making money and doing real estate?
Actually, exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So I just brought on a half-time admin. The goal is to get her full-time in the next couple months or so. But I'm really trying
Awesome.
to learn how to best utilize her. I'm
Oh,
working on it and
awesome.
I'm getting a lot better. But Jessica was just so awesome when she did it for me. I didn't even have to think about it. So I need a little more direction here.
Understandable. They're skills you don't realize you need until all of a sudden you need them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
I'm
and I think
available on all that stuff. So
too, Jordan, what what my thought with this class too, independent on kind of who's here, is I've got some material to kind of go through, but also just kind of open that up to Q&A style too, because you've got two other admins that are on here that are way better than me too. So getting their insight too would be good. But yeah, that's perfect timing for you, is to be able to just kind of chat through some of that stuff.
yeah, I saw the 3-part series and the middle part's exactly where I need to be. So
Perfect. Well, we're glad you're here.
yeah, I'm glad you guys are doing it. I got to get one document together here, guys. I'll jump back.
No sweat.
Second.
Hello, sir.
Morning.
How are ya?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Hey, Nora.
Good morning.
Looks sunny there.
I know.
In the office?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you, Mike?
I'm in my kitchen
In Minnesota, right?
in Minnesota. Yeah.
Okay.
In Minneapolis.
Well,
Travis.
Yes, sir.
Oh, actually, I'll put you after. That would make more sense.
Whatever you want to do, sir.
Amy.
Yay!
Hey, sorry I'm a couple minutes late.
Oh my gosh, this is my best belated birthday present. I get to see Amy.
Mhm.
I love you. Oh my goodness. Okay, sorry, I don't want to distract you guys. Okay.
We're
Where were
just
we?
we're just waiting for peeps still. I
Oh,
usually wait till
okay.
about like 5 after.
So I'm not
We're-
distracting anything then.
No, we're hard at work distracting each other.
Oh, okay. Hello, Jordan.
hey.
Are you tuning in from Texas?
Yeah, I'm hired, or I just hired an admin, so it's perfect timing here.
Okay. Okay.
And we're
And
going to hire another one.
I get to see you tomorrow.
Yes. Well, you might not actually see me. I'm
Oh,
not planning on being on the call because we wanted to give you guys space to talk. But
okay. How hard do you want me to drill him?
it's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, should I make him cry?
Amy's having us a career visioning for a group interview.
Oof.
I sense burpees. That's what you got to do to get a seat at the table. Drop and give me 20.
She's a very creative and artistic person, so I don't know if burpees are in her regular wheelhouse.
No, I'm not gonna make her do burpees. I never made my clients do anything I wouldn't do myself. So
Oh, and they're terrible. Mm-mm.
Travis, how
Yo.
are you? You're so quiet.
I'm just observing.
You're just observing.
I have to tweak my tweak my presentation now that Amy's here. It's got to be good.
Oh, stop it.
Travis
Good
just
grief.
phones it in for the rest of us. Like, you should
Yeah.
see how he treats the team.
But all
He
of a
doesn't
sudden
even turn on
Amy's
his
here, just like,
microphone.
oofda. Got a real baller here today.
Oh yeah, okay, guys.
No, it's nice to see you.
It's good to see you guys. I'm hoping this is a step that I'll be taking. No. This is a step I'll be taking this year. Is hiring an admin.
Awesome.
You got to do it. It's the best thing you'll ever do.
I have a meeting after this because the tax man, he cameth in. Oh, can you guys hear me? My video is.
Oh,
There she
goodbye.
went.
Hey, Molly.
Hola.
Hello.
So I was mentioning to Jordan, what we'll plan to do here is I've got some stuff put together, and I'll just kind of start going through that. But again, kind of what we did last week too, which I think was helpful, is had somewhat more of an open forum too. It's great. You're going to have me, Mike, and Lisa here to help answer questions, and if there's role specific stuff. I think that's some of the questions that come up sometimes. Who does what, or how do they do it? But feel free to stop us anytime. Pretty informal, but our goal here is to have your questions answered to the best that we can, and it's going to be based on what our experience is. It's not going to be hypotheticals or based off of models we haven't used. And you can walk away saying, hey, I have a better grasp of what that looks like, or you have something you're able to implement from there. Sound good?
Awesome.
Okay. So I did a little scouring of the internets. I found this little guide here. And what I've been doing with any of the documents from the classes after is I'm just sending those to Heather, so she's able to send those out and use those as a PDF, so you'll have access to these. I couldn't figure out how to put them in the chat, so you'll just have to look at my screen, unfortunately. But this was something I found from Kaplan Real Estate Education, and it was 11 signs you're ready to hire real estate administrators. So the first one here, and this is a question that comes up a lot, is when? Like, when are we ready to actually hire that first administrator? And what they had in here was 2 to 4 deals a month, or 24 to 36 deals consistently throughout the year. Depending on your financial situation, that could be different. You know, it could be less, it could be more. But one of the things that I think is really important is you have that base and that reserve there for that person, because you want, real estate can be very inconsistent, you know, with that roller coaster, but you don't want the person you're paying to have that fluctuation in their income. Otherwise they're probably not going to be there. So 2 to 4 deals per month. I think the thing that the little bullet point I put in here is consistency is key. Like, I'm attracted to agents that are consistent with lead generation. That's what I've always wanted when I was looking for a team. When I first, when I left the first agent I started working for, as I'm like, I am partnering up with people that lead generate, because I don't want to be involved with people that don't. Everything we've read in the Red Book has told us that that's the most important things that agents do. And if they don't do that, then I don't want to be in business with them. So the consistency in our actions, which we all know leads to the closings, that's the part that needs to be there every single time. If you're not able to be consistent, I would strongly encourage you to do the self-work before you bring someone else into your stratosphere. And if you're looking for an administrator that's going to come in and help you be more consistent, good luck. Because if you're having a hard time already, having someone tell you to do it doesn't always necessarily work either. For some people it does, but for most it's not a great relationship to have someone telling you what to do. You know, you have to be committed to doing the work. So that kind of tied into number 2 of what Kaplan had was be consistent in lead generation. So whatever that looks like, and I know we talked about it, I think it was last week, we talked a little bit about it. Whether you're making the calls or you're hiring someone to make the calls have to happen. And are you going to be lead generation based, like prospecting based with marketing enhanced, or marketing based with prospecting enhanced? You know, what does that business look like? Are you hunting for leads or receiving leads? And trying to figure that piece of the equation out is going to help your administrator on the front end a lot, because they're going to know how your business works. Know your profitability each month. So it's really hard to make a hire if you don't know what you're making. And our MAPS coach has drilled this into us over and over and over again, is we have to look at that profit and loss statement on a monthly basis. There's ebbs and flows in real estate, as all of us know. There's, you know, we can have a big month and then all of a sudden it's crickets. You know, you want to be looking at the average, you know, month or, you know, like I like to look at like a quarterly basis. That gives me a little bit better of a snapshot than a month-to-month basis. But how do you know how much money you're going to have to pay someone if you don't even know what your profitability, what your profitability looks like? Know how much you're willing to pay your assistant, just like I said, and have the reserves available. So I know Sean had mentioned it last week when we did kind of that team call, but one of the things that I was very attracted to with working with Sean and Katie was they told me straight up, they're like, hey, by the way, we're going to have 4 months reserve of your salary. You know, that's just what we're going to operate with. Because I came from a situation that was not the case, and that wasn't great. You know, like wondering how I'm going to support my family based on what transactions look like. And, that just didn't work. If I wanted to live that life, I'd be a realtor. Like if I wanted to do that, that's what I'd sign up for. So knowing that there's kind of that security blanket, and now I know that they actually run a larger pad, and I think it's actually 6 months. And we've talked about it. I'm like, Sean, if we're dipping into the reserves for 6 months, we're going to be able to have a conversation before that 6 months is up. Something ain't right. If we're just spending and nothing's coming in, there's a bigger issue going on. So one of the things that they practice is, whatever income comes in, they fill that reserve back up if they ever have to dip into it. And there's months where things are slower. January, February, and November, December are typically slower months in real estate, but not always. So just kind of know what that baseline looks like. It's very similar, if anybody's familiar with Dave Ramsey's teaching, talking about having your emergency fund. That's how we view it. Me and Sean and Katie went through Financial Peace University when we were all just little punks, probably like, I think it was 12 years ago. And they just basically took that same model and applied it to business.
I have a question.
Yes,
question,
Molly.
Travis. Okay. So let me give you my my deal. So I've made a run at having an assistant 3 times. So I feel like I'm either climbing a hill of sand or punching myself in my own face. And I spent the money to send one of them through Monica Reynolds. One had already been through Monica Reynolds. One had not. I had 3 total. 1 was a disaster. 2 was a disaster. 3 was I gave her whatever resources she needed. I sent her through Monica Reynolds. I got her connected with mentors and all this shit, and I still kept getting the job back. And I'm not, I want to be a hands-off. I'm not I can be a micromanager, but I don't want to be, and I'm busy. And I ended up taking a huge hit on my income to have an admin, which means wrong admin. I get it. So where I'm at now, I apparently like to punch myself in my own face. So I'm like,
you're in good company.
Right. You're like, ugh. I have a lot of hair, so you can't see all the hair I've probably pulled out. So,
that's what happened to me, is I just pulled all mine out. I got so upset with the agent.
Right.
Just
so
kidding.
Where I'm at is I'm like, okay, my biggest problem, you probably already know, is I don't have any systems in place. They all unfortunately live in my head. So I've been talking to Andy that this year I'm going to work on getting into command and getting the workflows and getting stuff, try to automate things, because for now I'm a one-man show.
Yeah.
And 2, if I'm going to hire somebody, then I already have the stuff set up.
Yes.
And so I was like, what I really want to do right now, if I'm going to build systems, I mean, it stressed me out to have a full-time employee because, like I had somebody counting on me for their income. And even though I had reserves, it was like, I don't know, it just was too stressful for me. So I was thinking about getting like a contract to close person.
Yeah.
The problem I'm finding is I have to find somebody that will work within command, but also can work in 2 states. I'm licensed in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I did try using Shannon, but it wasn't,
wasn't right for you.
I know lots of people like him, so whatever, that's fine. But, for him to do Wisconsin, if I'm going to have to train you in to do Wisconsin, then why am I paying you to contract to close?
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you know anywhere where I could, make another run at least having a contract to close that can do command and do 2?
So I don't want to butt in too much, but I do want you to know, Molly, that Shannon is taking his Wisconsin class and license. So if that might be an option, I don't know.
Well, I think that that's great that he's doing that. And, Lynn will tell you all day long. Lynn has her Wisconsin license because of me being licensed. but I've been licensed probably the longest now out of anybody in the office because I'm
Yeah.
coming on 20 years, and there is so much bullshit involved with Wisconsin that
Yeah.
it isn't like I got licensed in Wisconsin, I can do this. It's like whatever you know about Minnesota, the opposite applies in Wisconsin, and it's you put it into the MLS as active contingent on inspection, Wisconsin's going to fine you. That's illegal. You can't do that there. Oh, you want to do a septic cert? By the way, a septic cert is not a septic cert in Wisconsin. Septic cert in Wisconsin is totally different. So there's such a huge learning curve on Wisconsin that
Yeah.
you really got to find somebody who knows Wisconsin.
When I was doing transaction coordination for our team, I think I've done 3 Wisconsin deals in my career, and they're tricky. Like I had to do a lot of reading to get myself up to speed, and I'm nowhere near as proficient as someone who's done it for 20 years. I don't even pretend to be. Like, it's exhausting. Like, if I see a Wisconsin deal, I'm like, ick. I'd rather see someone else deal with it.
If I live 4 blocks away from Wisconsin, trust me, I would not do Wisconsin. And people go, I'm going to get licensed in Wisconsin. I'm like, why? Honestly, I wouldn't wish Wisconsin on my own worst enemy. I do it because, hey, guess what? I'm in Wisconsin every day. So it was kind of but when I got into it, I mean, luckily I had somebody who could help me. And even now, Lynn will call me and be like, what the hell? Or I'm calling Lynn like, God damn. I mean, Wisconsin is a bitch. So,
well, and I would say, so it's tricky because you're definitely talking about 2 different states, and it's 2 different skill sets, and I don't know if there's a whole lot of crossover. I'm sure there probably is transaction coordinators that do both, but I don't know for sure. I know I've come across a couple of companies that we've worked with on the co-op side that are transaction coordination companies, but I don't know much about what they do.
Yeah, and it's also like, can they use command on our
Yeah. I mean, that's the trick. So one of the things we'll talk about too is, and I just kind of highlighted it, as like a transaction coordinator versus a virtual assistant versus someone in-house. And a transaction coordinator, if you hire someone to just process your files, you're almost adhering to how they do it. It's like you're hiring that business to do it versus how we would do it if we controlled it. So there's kind of a give and a take, because you're going to pay less potentially depending on how much volume you do. Because we ran numbers on it. Like, if we do 100 sales and it's $300 a pop, that's enough to hire an administrator and have them do everything else, that you want them to do. But if you're only doing 10, 12 deals, maybe it doesn't make sense to bring in an administrator yet and just take that piece off your plate. But you kind of lack some of the control of how they're going to do it to some degree. Like, you can definitely ask, them to do X, Y, and Z, but I wouldn't bank on it. It's just kind of harder to have, someone fill that administrative role remotely, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Molly?
Yeah.
And we can kind of talk about, like we'll talk a little bit more about leveraging systems when you hire administratively instead of leveraging your brain, because that's the tricky part. Is if everything's up in your head, then they're always going to come back to you as the source for information until they're up to speed, and that takes a while, depending on the person.
Well, that's why I decided, I guess I just have to, I like command, and so I, just have to sit down and hammer through the stuff. And then I'm hoping that I can create enough automation to free up a little bit of my brain.
Well, and I would say, Mike, if you want to jump in maybe on what that experience was like onboarding when you're able to be trained on systems versus following me around with a pen and pad.
Yeah, for sure. Just how we have it set up in Top Producer, which you can do in Command as well, I believe. It was more just getting the experience in for me and just following what Top Producer was telling me to do based off the systems that Travis had implemented over the years. So my learning curve on our CRM was probably 2 weeks till I felt comfortable and 6 weeks till I felt like I completely understood it. So it's definitely all about having those systems set up ahead of time, then being able to teach a new admin, I would assume. And it was weird for me because we use Command just for our documents and processing commissions, where before I was using Command for everything. So there was a steep learning curve, but I mean, as long as you have somebody to look to when you're confused, the learning process can go quite quickly.
Okay.
So, and I'll just kind of jump back into this too. So like having that job description for your assistant on the front end, what are we going to have them do? It's going to be way easier to train someone on that instead of trying to think of it on the fly. And then I wrote in here, I think that there's a couple different types of admins. I think there's task managers and I think there's empire builders. And they're two different skill sets. There's people that love doing tasks and that's where their sweet spot is. And you need them just as much as you need empire builders. In my opinion, there's no position that's more important than the other on our team. We're all very interconnected, because if we just sit there and build systems all day and no one's actually giving us business to run through them, then we have great systems that don't even do anything. And vice versa. If we generate a ton of business and don't have systems, we create kind of that chaos. And I think, Lisa, I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit. I know you've talked about it before, kind of your sweet spot, but.
Yeah, for sure. I know when I was hired, all of our systems had already been built because Travis hired me. And I was able to just plug into these pre-made systems from day one. I was just checking things off through the systems that already existed. I took the Monica Reynolds class early on, and every single class I was like, we're already doing this. So it was awesome because I quickly learned that for me, even though I like to think I'm really, really good at my job, I've handled 230 listings in the past 4 years. If I had to build those systems, I wouldn't have lasted a week. I would have been out the door. That's not what I'm good at. I don't have the disposition for that. And as I've grown in my role, I can create new systems and I can adapt the ones that we have. But coming in at the ground level and being told, here's my business, can you build this for me? That's not the job I was hired for. And if I had been the kind of person looking for that job, I probably would have been looking to get paid twice as much. It's a very different job. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for just walking in and picking up systems where they are. I love it. That's definitely my sweet spot.
And Lisa's being super modest. She is very good at helping create processes and systems now too. So I'll fill your bucket a little bit on that. You could jump in and build stuff whenever you want. And Lisa's right. There's definitely a difference in that person you hire. Like if you're looking for a personal assistant, that's a totally different person than someone who's going to build your business. Like if you want me to pick up your dry cleaning, I am not the guy for that job. But if you want me to help you build $1 million business, I am the right person for that job. And that's the cool part, is we recognize that as a team. Like, where do people fit, and what's their strengths? And, don't let them focus in on the stuff they're not good at or the stuff that they can't stand doing. Next one here is you're comfortable in letting someone else do your daily tasks. So again, it's kind of weird when you hire someone because, and I've had this with other agents. They're kind of like, ooh, I don't know if you can do this as well as me. And I'm like, yeah, I can do this better than you actually. So give it to me. And vice versa. Like if there's a tough phone call to make with a client, I would give that back to an agent because their interpersonal skills are superior to mine. I'm not going to be able to, tie into the emotion of a client, not nearly as well as our agents are. but being able to determine what the people around you are best at and setting them up to win, so it's always interesting when you first start that relationship, or even when we bring a new agent on the team that's had some experience in the business. They're kind of like, oh, I'm really good at that. I'm really good at setting up whatever it is, maybe a contract, or I'm really good at, staying on top of lenders. And I'm like, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to find new business. That's what we do. And that's where we have those systems in place to tell us what to do. Otherwise, we're just kind of lost. Like, we can manage a certain amount of business just in our heads, but there becomes a capacity really quickly and really quick, and we start to drop the ball on stuff. So this one too, you have at least an hour a day at first to spend training your assistant. So you have to make time to set them up to win. And very few people that I know can just jump into someone's business and make it work. We're not mind readers. We need to know what the plan is, what people want to, want us to do, what they want us to accomplish. And it really depends on experience level too. Like, I feel like I would be pretty confident jumping into another team and being able to look under the hood and figure stuff out. But if it's a brand new administrator that doesn't have experience in real estate, that's a big, tall order. You got to invest the time on the front end. And that's hard because it feels like you're taking away from the lead generation part of it, the prospecting part of it, showings, all those other things. But a well-trained administrator you will reap the benefits of that in your business year over year. This one too they had was, you've spoken to other trusted agents about hiring an assistant. So y'all are here, which is awesome. And I think that that's part of it too, is learn from each other. Like, I think that's one of the beautiful things we have in Keller Williams is we're all willing to actually share from experiences. And it sounds like Nora's, utilizing Amy to help, have another perspective, talking to a potential hire. Like, that's a pretty cool deal that doesn't always happen in the business world, let alone the real estate world. So, learning from those around us. And then I did mention in here too, like, career visioning, and using KPAs, or, we used to use the DISC assessments. I think people still use DISC assessments too, but getting a feel for who that person is before you hire them. Like, take your time. Don't hire, out of necessity. Hire the right person for the job. And we're slow. I mean, we take our time in the hiring process because we don't want to screw it up. It's expensive to screw up hires. And you just don't want that kind of revolving doors of administrative people, especially if it's your first hire. Like, that first hire administratively is going to become kind of that hub of business, and you don't want to retrain or rebuild or start over. So just take your time. So being able to provide your assistant with the information on the front end, here's what the expectations are, here's what we want to do. And it kind of goes back to that system conversation. It's so much easier to say, okay, Mike, here's what we're going to have you do, and here's all the tasks, and here's how you do it. Versus, me just trying to explain it to him and hope that he's retaining it. That just doesn't happen at a high level, I think, over time. Next one is get your schedule organized. So again, still keeping those core components that we read about in the MREA over and over again of the lead generation. Stay in that sweet spot, because if you don't, and you spend a lot of time, doing other things, then your business isn't going to be there to support yourself and your new hire, and you'll be back to square one quickly. You'll have some learning lessons, because we always look at those situations as lessons, but we don't necessarily want to go backwards. And then you have have a system for organizing and keeping track of transactions. So, there's listing management, there's transaction management, there's just day-to-day operation management. You know, your first hire is going to be kind of all of that. But then you can really specialize from there. You can really break down specifics on who does what in each capacity. And each of those are different skill sets too. So the more you build, the easier it is to know what you want to be looking for. Okay, that was kind of my sheet there. Any questions so far? Comments? Jordan, did you have much of that stuff kind of put together with your hire that you just made?
Yeah, I like the sheet you have there. I absolutely think, you know, once you're even able to support them, I think I could have done a lot better had I hired an assistant earlier on too. It was easy for me because I'm dating somebody who's done all this work, and I can ask her questions. She literally works 10 feet away. So I can always ask her questions on what should I do? How do I have this person do this? But I did not have all that put together necessarily. Of course, I loaded all the transaction coordination on her right away. I've never done my own transaction coordination. I am terrible at that kind of stuff. I use Shannon there when I'm doing deals there, but you know, for me personally, more recently, I figured out, hey, if I'm spread too thin, I'm not going to do as good of a job as I could in every sense. So I stopped actively hunting properties to sell and buyers in Minnesota. And Adam just kind of took it and ran with it. We dissolved our team at the beginning of this year or end of last year, whatever you want to look at it. And he's just doing his own thing. So for me, just being hyper focused on what I'm doing, which is, you know, growing a business here in Austin, Texas. I've got a great administrative support person, and she's helping me do that. And whenever I find something that is clunky and I'm not good at, I put a system together for this person to do it. So I have a podcast. I made a checklist for how to publish and put together the podcast. So I just send a scheduling link to somebody, they schedule, I interview them, it gets sent to the publisher, it gets published. I don't do any of that. Most
And
of the very
that's
successful
truly
people,
that's truly leverage then too. Like
yeah,
if you're having to babysit the whole process, it's not leverage.
no,
But if you're able to say, here's what I do, here's what you're gonna do, now here's how you do it, that's
yeah.
a whole different conversation. That's awesome. You know, like that truly does free up your time.
And I think for me, the biggest piece has been, and I've always been this way whenever I've had somebody working with me, even when I had the gym business, fitness business, I trusted them to do what they're doing. So I just trust the people that I bring on. I've done my due diligence up front. I said, hey, this person sounds awesome. I'm going to give them a chance, and I'm going to put all of my trust into them. So I don't worry that they're doing things the way they need to be done. If something gets messed up, it's on me in the beginning. So if this person that's working for me messes something up, it's probably because I didn't tell them how I wanted it done.
Yep.
So I don't blame anybody else ever. If it happens 3 times and I've told them 2 times how to do it, that's a different thing. But it's never their fault the first time. It's always my fault. You know, it's always your fault because you didn't put the system together. And it's easy to get frustrated when something wasn't done right. But I've learned that if I put a system together or I put a checklist together, things happen the way they need to happen.
I think that I share a very similar approach too with I'm always going to look at work ethic and character as the main components of what I want in terms of people I want to be in business with over experience. Like give me someone that will work their tail off that I can trust and has high integrity. I'll work with that all day long because we can train them to do the job. But you can't train work ethic, you can't train character and integrity.
I had no real estate experience when I got hired. I was not interested in real estate, to be honest, you guys. I still don't care about real estate. I care about doing the tasks that I do in order to make these people's lives better. And so sometimes I think people get really caught up in this idea that this is a real estate business, this is a car sales business, this is, whatever business this is. I want to find somebody who's passionate about this business, which is totally fine. Like, if you could find me really, really excited about real estate, well, to be honest, I'd probably be an agent and I wouldn't do these jobs because I'd be so excited to go out and sell real estate. Finding that discipline, finding, like you said, Travis, finding that attitude, finding the commitment, those will keep paying you back. Because we know too, in this business, the ups and downs, if you have an admin who is just as susceptible to those external forces, who gets a little bummed out when things slow down, if they're riding the same emotional roller coaster that their agent is, I think that's a danger zone too. Having a really steady Eddie who's not super worried about the market, I think can pay you back. So that's just kind of maybe a little different perspective than some people might be thinking about when you're looking for your first hire. Don't worry so much about finding somebody who knows real estate or who's super excited about it, because you can find those skills anywhere.
And it's all trainable. Once you have systems in place, you train the person on the systems. It's no different than like how we've built systems since the dawn of time is I've always wanted to create the McDonald's of real estate. Like, build the system simple enough that anybody could jump in and do it. And I always joke around, like, if I get hit by a bus, the business doesn't crash with me. It's something that, it's kind of like a fiduciary duty to be able to get that stuff out of my head so the team can still go on without me, if something was to happen. And it would be very selfish if I didn't. It would be very self-centered if I was like, boy, this whole business is dependent on my knowledge of how all this stuff works. I mean, that's not right. That's not how you build a business. Then it's a people dependent business versus a business. So I guess one of the other questions I got last week, I think it was from Lily, actually. She was asking about finding that administrative hire. And I think that that's a question that comes up quite a bit. And I don't think there's a magic sauce on how to find those. I think that where the majority of people from, classes I've taken through KW will say is they find them through their sphere. And the thing that I had mentioned to Lily when we were trading some emails after last week's class was, chances are talented administrators aren't looking for jobs, FYI, because they have them. They're good at what they do. You don't see a whole lot of really talented administrators posting on Craigslist. It's the people that don't have the skill set that's necessary to be successful in that role that are posting on there. So they probably are already employed. So being able to talk to the people that we know and trust and be able to describe what you're looking for, that's what's going to get those people to pop their head up. If they're looking for a change, they're probably not going unemployed for 12 months and then getting hired. They're probably looking to go from, I'm currently working here, I'd like a week off, and then I'm going to start this new job. But there has to be that opportunity that's enough for them to be interested in that role. So being able to kind of poke into our sphere, into our database, using social media to just kind of describe what you're looking for. Do you know anybody that, has a high level of attention to detail, but also likes to, look at whatever, that's interested in real estate or whatever, or making a career move or whatever. I'm not a social media guru. I bet Nora probably has a better idea of what to put on there than I do. But I think that's, you're muted, Nora. We need you.
We're hiring a social media and marketing manager. Like, I can do it, but the way Shareline uses social media, we want someone to take it from like amazing to like outer space, so.
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of avenues on how to kind of pop around for those, but I think the biggest takeaway that I had from, I think it was career visioning when I had taken it, when the instructor was like, hey, the really good ones aren't out there. I mean, they're just not, because why would they be? They have a skill set that any business wants. Like, if you're an empire builder, it's not just for real estate. That empire building could go into any business and be successful. So being able to look outside just maybe our industry, you know, that's something to think about, you know. And I know I've heard, and gosh, I can't remember who the agent was, but I know when he was looking for like showing assistants, he would go to like rental agencies when they're showing like rental properties, and if that rental person is like really good and persuasive and does a really good job taking care of him while he's looking through the properties, like he's like, hey, have you ever thought about, you know, being in real estate or whatever, because he's already getting to see kind of a test run of how they interact. So it's, I mean, don't just look through the tunnel vision of like, you know, real estate, because that could be really anywhere they could be successful.
Yeah, when I think about my job and my interests, you know, I feel like what drew me to this position, because I also had a different job. I was actually a physical therapist assistant working at the U of M hospital. Um, but I heard about this job and the tasks were in my wheelhouse, you know? It sounded like the kind of place where I could punch in and do some tasks, maybe make some Facebook posts. Um, and really just follow a checklist, and that's what I love most. You know, if I were to try and hire someone like me, I would be asking all my friends, who do you know who gets super excited to write a checklist in the morning? Like, my favorite thing some days is writing down something that I already did so that I can cross it off, because that feels real good. Like, I would look for those specific traits, maybe rather than the whole box, because that whole box has to be built. But like a nerd who gets excited about pens and writing checklists and cleaning out email boxes. You guys, hire somebody who knows how to clean out an email box. That's somebody who stays on top of what people need. Um, when you really start breaking it down to the piece by piece level, um, that might give you some clarity about what you're looking for, rather than using the big words to try and attract people who want to be paid 80 grand a year because they're, you know, coming from some other sector. So that's just something that came to mind.
So I think if there's other questions, feel free to interject. I did grab one other thing that I'll give to Heather just as a resource for you guys, but I'm not gonna run through all of this. But I found this other little doodad that had basically a bunch of activities that, you know, you could have your administrators do. And if you don't have systems in place, you can work backwards from this list. Or you could maybe just highlight a few things of like, okay, these are big things that I want someone else to start working on. And it's just a PDF, you know, and some of the stuff may not apply, but I was like, hey, how can we find some material that will actually, you know, kind of stir some of those conversations in our mind? Kind of exactly what Lisa just said was like, you know, if you bullet point, hey, I'm looking for someone that, you know, loves making home books or whatever, you know, like that might be enough to draw a creative type in if you're looking for someone that to fill that role. But I'll add that to basically that little handout there. So if there's any things that jump out, you at least have somewhat of a resource. And I know KW has a ton of stuff now, and it was crazy. I think I was talking to Mike about it. When I first started in real estate, there was no administrative training. There's no Monica Reynolds. There was no nothing. It was all about the agents and how the agents were the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, well, agents are really successful because of who they are and the support they get. And I think that that's the thing that, you know, those that makes teams work or relationships work, is there's that mutual level of respect for each other's roles. And I know that I need our agents and vice versa. And that's a spot to be, I think, because I you know, you don't want to feel like you're inferior to what someone else is doing. So being able to manage all these tasks and build these systems is equally as important as executing on a listing appointment. So anyways, that's kind of my 2 cents with that. I mean, if there's questions or anything else you guys thought of or want more explanation on, feel free to chime in.
Amy apologizes for not being here. She's very frustrated that her computer kicked her off.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this too, Travis.
Yeah.
Where can we get that PDF that you were just showing us?
Can you just sit tight for a second? I can upload it to our website and then I can actually give you a link. I know Heather's been emailing stuff out, or I think she has. But if you sit tight for a second, I can take care of it right now.
Awesome. No, that'd be great, man. I gotta get running, guys, but I really appreciate this. Super helpful. I'm always looking. I'm actually gonna have, you kept talking about that course. I'm gonna have the lady who's working with me take that course too.
Monica's?
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah, I thought that there was a lot of good stuff in there. You know, and this is my full blunt voice. There's some things that I'm like, I'm not doing that, and I don't care what you say, Monica. That is not who I am as a human.
Yeah.
And there's some things I'm like, we should do that. So there, I mean, you'll have to kind of go through it and just kind of say, okay, what do we want to use? Like, what do we want to add? And then just start putting that stuff into, you know, your structure and stuff. But I there was definitely takeaways from that where I'm just like, dang, there's some good stuff in here.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And Jordan, I would also add, if you have someone working with you currently, there's some really good Facebook groups for real estate admins, like Admin Success Principles. And then there's a KW or Executive Assistants Mastermind, KW Mega Teams. And those are like incredible resources, because within each of those, there's people who run masterminds or like video trainings or like group connects, and then there's tons of resources online there too. People ask questions like, how would you handle this? I'm trying to create a new system for XYZ. And the group think on there is incredible. So it's totally worth it to have that person join those groups.
Awesome. I will. No, I really appreciate that. All right, guys.
Okay, I posted both those in the chat too. So those should be hyperlinks right to the PDF. You'll probably want to grab those before you close out too, Jordan, if you want those right now.
Okay, I will grab them.
I think that should work, but cool. Well, and if you guys ever have any questions after, feel free to drop me an email. I'm always happy to respond, and, you know, just share anything that we've done that's been successful or that we failed forward on. That, like I said earlier, the cool thing about our company is it's sharing based, and I can't even tell you how many people poured into me when I first started. Like, I still remember agents, you know, sitting down and explaining Excel to me, like teaching me how to use Excel at the Vadnais Heights office. And, you know, that's just cool that, you know, that we're in an environment where it's like that, because it's just not, you know, I've talked to plenty of other agents that are like, no, it's not like that at XYZ company.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, cool. Well, like I said, feel free to reach out, and thanks for plugging in this morning.
It's awesome to
Thank
see you,
Travis
Jordan.
and Lisa. Good to see all you guys, but thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah, our pleasure. Always happy to help.
Thanks, Heather.
Right. Take care, Jordan.
See you guys.
All right, good to see you.